Okay. Alright. Let me just go. Uh, Actually, I don't know if I should do this. I was doing this
Don't
yesterday
trust
because
your eyes uncrit.
I already finished all of this. No, we don't have to worry about all that. But I got the primo rewards anyway. All the important rewards. All of this is just extra stuff. Maybe I would do some of that extra stuff. In this, yeah, I'm actually surprised. Which I'm gonna talk about the Stella Fortunas later. But I'm actually surprised that tempered in practice is an every week thing. I thought it was a one-time thing. Because after the week I got the constellation and got Yaimiko, I just did the tempered to see if I'll get lucky, and I did. I got all the rewards. Because it's random. You get like all the rewards, some, most, and then I believe like the lowest amount of rewards is just like Mora and I don't know if it's like some level up material. I don't know, something like that. Actually, does it even show all the? That's not what I meant to do. Hold on. Okay, I can't even check. Anyways, I know there we go. Okay.
People
What the
only
hell?
see what they want.
Trying to see if it shows. No. Yeah, that's basically it. But I thought it was gonna show like flat out like side by side. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is I thought it was a one-time thing and it's not. Because I did it the week after I got the constellation. I did it the second week after. This would be the third week, but I just didn't feel like doing it. And yeah, it's life has been lifing. So yeah, we'll get into a very small fraction of that. 'Cause I don't want to turn this into a whole therapy session. But yeah, I finally beat the whole entire quest. I finished it yesterday also. Because I started a while ago when Sandrone was on the banner. Oh God, yeah. There's so much stuff to talk about. But yeah, I didn't get Sandrone. It, God, I unbelievable. But anyways, uh, so I started around there. Like one of the last couple days she was on the banner, and then I got to the second point when you had to activate like the tower stuff. I got up to that, and then I stopped, and then I finished the rest yesterday. I did a whole bunch of stuff yesterday in Genshin. But yeah, I'm glad I actually did this. And I beat it after watching the live stream. Because that whole Sarista thing, it sounds cool and all. but I to me it does not make sense. Which again, I'll go definitely more into that. That's probably gonna take the longest. But yeah, I'll have more than enough time. But yeah. Overall, very interesting life here, though. Very, very good. Very good. I don't know if I should just fight this. Or I should just wait for the whole thing to fill. Yeah, because even if I fight this, I'm still not gonna have up to 12. Oh, now that I look at that, dude, like I said, the live stream itself was really good. But, dude, there were some things. Oh, oh, I was wondering. Because I didn't see it in the World Quest. When I was doing the World Quest, I was like, where the hell is the spaceship? You know what? 'Cause I kind of want to get to this. I wonder if you can interact with the spaceship and get some of those logs of where they traveled to. I don't want to start a whole entire thing and then it ends up being nothing. Because I was mostly just gonna, well, I'll recap some other stuff. Um, but I was just mostly gonna talk about the live stream and then go into the whole Conria, Third Descender, and all that stuff. Because, like I said, to me, it was such a shocking reveal. But then, like, when I actually realized, like, everything and started remembering lore and stuff, it's like, how the hell is she like, how is all descendants lead to her? I don't understand it. But it might answer a few things. And even with that, that even brings more questions. Was the Tsar actually successful in his mission in going into the abyss? And that's how Conrians were birthed from his successful mission? Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a rabbit hole, which we could go into that rabbit hole later. But it's not what I'm to do. Oh, there's also this around here. Okay, let's just talk about this stuff first, and then we can do that stuff after. Cause I didn't even realize that's all that stuff was there, and I didn't even claim. I just remember this. I didn't even claim all this stuff, but honestly, it's fine. Um, dude, they're talking a lot about Star Rail, La Mancha, then Cyrene. Um, I already claimed all the other ones, so. I believe they also talked about like a pale sun or something like that. Or maybe that might have been a different quest that I got something about like a pale sun, which that is like fine on. But then they also talk about a pale star, which a star is a sun. So, and then the whole thing with the Sarista again. So, I wonder if that pale star is honestly supposed to represent the third descender. Because I believe all descenders are like star or sun type figures. Sun slash star. That's where you get the whole, which that it's a whole rabbit hole in itself about the descenders. But that's what I believe. That's how you get the biblical connection of each person who went to the earth. That's like a, I don't want to say godlike figure because, well, again, that's a gigantic rabbit hole, and it's also a bigger one, especially when you talk about religion. But entity like beings, let's just put it like that. Four came to Earth, and I believe those four are supposed to represent the descenders. So, again, we'll re-go through all of that stuff. I talked about that plenty of times before. But nah, I'm not gonna find it.
Why does Ashru sit up on the counter? To welcome our clients, of course. A kitty's gotta earn his
But
kibble somehow.
hold on, there was like one place that I could like sit. I'm trying to find that place. Where was it? Maybe like over here. I know it was yeah, right here. It was around the beginning of the third part of the quest. Because you start like from that way coming up over here, and that gigantic flying thing gets hit by a different version of the gigantic flying thing. But I forgot their names. I know that one is a girl, and she was researchers slash lover with the other one that looks like that. But it was like it was like the Black Kuhenki, like the little mini Black Kuhenki, but it was a gigantic version. But yeah, they explain all that stuff. I forgot all their names though. Actually, her I think is Magis. Then the other one was Eugen, Unigen, Unigen, something like that. And then there was another researcher that we didn't see at all. They just talked about it by name. And then that researcher had a daughter, and then the daughter is the little tiny black Kohenki. And then, she completes her mission and she basically dies. It's just kind of harsh. But, which, again, we're gonna talk more about that. Because I think all this stuff, like, intertwines with the third descender. And it just brings more questions. Like, how the hell is it possible? Like, she's the mother of like all Conrians, basically, since her descendants is the Conrians. I just like I don't know. I really don't know. But anywho, let's just talk about some of the other stuff. We could recap that and then start this gigantic headache trying to figure this out. But yeah, I've not been back on YouTube for very, 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 very long time. I don't even remember the last time. Oh, it was the Temple of Space. That's what it was. Damn, oh my god. That was. How long ago was that? Like 3 months already? Or 2 months? Close to three? Jeez. But, yeah. I have been on Twitch. Even though it has not been as much recently. Like when the last. I guess you could say like month. It's been very, very hectic. And I was talking a little bit about it in the last stream when I did on Twitch. But it feels like you take one step forward and it somehow like it's 100 back. So yeah, it's been I mean, there's like it could always be worse. Which you know, it's the interesting way to look at it, I guess. And I mean, it is kind of true. But, dude, it's just, God, it's a lot. It's a lot. But, like I said, I did stream on Twitch while I haven't been streaming on here since the Temple of Space Quest. So, a lot has happened in between. Which, like I said, we could just do like a tiny recap thing. Um, so Plan Arcadia, which this is Star Rail. Oh my god, Star Rail is like a gigantic can of worms. Which I'm not gonna go fully into everything, but yeah. I thought with the last quest, Plan Arcadia was gonna be finished and we was gonna go to Astropolis. It doesn't look like that anymore. It looks like we're still gonna be in Plan Arcadia and somehow in Astropolis. So I really don't know. Like I said, that's its own gigantic can of worms. But the whole thing with Astar Pimon and the dice games, that revealed so much. And it also revealed even more that people did not pay attention to what he said. Because he clearly said in the beginning of the dice game, a fail is going to be a majority of lies with like a little tiny bit of truth into it. If you get a success, it will be a lot of truth, but not full of it. It would just be a lot with a mixture of lies. So I wouldn't say exactly 50-50. Like if I had to put it in numbers, and these are not accurate numbers, I'm like I said, if I had to put it in numbers, like a fail, I think it's like 20-80. A success is like 70-30. And then a critical success, which basically the whole entire thing is true. and then it would be a tiny bit of lie. It would be like 80-20. So, but yeah. And about the whole, especially when he talks about the Ravengers, I think the one that he's consistently lying about the Ravengers is Archforger. Everybody else I think is true. I think Archforger is the lie about his weakness. And then you got the Stellaron itself, because that's one of the questions, the Stellaron, which the critical success is obviously Harmony. Created the Stellarons, but is blessed by Acavelli, which is the Eon of Trailblaze. Which is funny because I correctly predicted that it was blessed by Trailblaze. And I believe the other Trailblazer that we see, so like if you play as Callus, which is the boy, I believe his name is Callus, then the other would be Stel. So for me, when I see Stel, I believe that is like the inner Stellaron, like taking form and speaking to the Trailblazer. So I think the other gender of the Trailblazer that we see and talk to, I believe that's just the Stellaron. That the Stellaron is talking to your main Trailblazer. And I also think that it was a previous cycle of the universe, if you will. So if you pick Callus, then I think the previous cycle was Stel. And then since obviously she failed, and then became a Stellaron, somehow, I could kind of take a shot at it. But she became a Stellaron and then blessed by Acavelli. Then in the next cycle, the Stellaron hunters grab a hold of that specific Stellaron, created Callus, put the Stellaron inside of them. So now I believe that's how they're connected to finality also. But again, that's like a gigantic big thing. And as far as Stel becoming the Stellaron, that probably has to do with obviously Harmony and Acavelli. But it probably also has to do with the 4 apocalypse thingy, which I will briefly talk about that also. Which is like the 4 paths that lead to finality, which is destruction, nihility, and harmony. I believe they also had something like that in the previous cycle, and destruction was not one of them. I don't know about nihility. Harmony, yes, I still think harmony was one of them. But anyways, so I think Harmony created the Stellarons specifically for Acavelli. And Acavelli used one specific Stellaron. He probably used other ones also, and just spread it out throughout the universe. But honestly, it really doesn't matter, because then it would have just went into a new cycle, and that's how you get the main character, Callus. Or for me, Callus, because that's what I picked. But again, yeah. So I think Harmony created specifically for Acavelli. Acavelli used the Stellaron and then gave it to the previous trailblazer. So that when it went into the next cycle again, the Stellaron Hunters put inside Callus, and then that's that. But yeah, there was quite a few stuff. Um, I know I said I was gonna talk about the four paths, which I'm still going to. But now that I mentioned Stellaron Hunters, it was also interesting what he said about the Stellaron Hunters. Because if you get a critical success, he reveals that Elio is using the Stellaron Hunters to create a finality that finality doesn't happen. So he's basically trying to freeze all possibilities that finality doesn't happen. And the universe just continues living. And in a sense, that would be a specific finality. So he's basically trying to get the perfect ending, if you will, which adds up a lot because I know when I was talking about this previously, um, if you look at I forgot the name of the trailer, but it's the trailer when it shows what happens if we didn't go to Emphorius, like Herta being Iron Tomb and the other stuff. One of the endings when we did go to Emphorius, that it was a possibility that the Trailblazer was gonna get like so um what's a heartbroken, I guess, and not necessarily heartbroken because he fell in love and out of love or whatever, but heartbroken because his journey meant nothing. But yeah, when he went to Emphorius, it was a possibility that he was gonna be so heartbroken about what happened inside Emphorius that him and Cyrene was just gonna completely freeze everything, which they ended up kind of doing anyway. But then they broke, and that's a whole different thing. They broke it, resetted the universe, and then defeated Iron Tomb, and that again, like I said, that's a whole entire thing. But the part when Trailblazer goes into like Cyrene's, honestly, if you think about it, it's like her own little version of our Garden of Recollection. Funny enough, it's literally like her own little version, just Emphorius related. But once you go there in the quest, that is technically the part when the Trailblazer and Cyrene freezes the whole entire universe. And then, like I said, by the end of it, they break out of it, and then etc. etc. But the Stellaron Hunters was worried that they were gonna stay in there forever, and that was gonna be one finality. So that in that sense, remembrance would have been the fourth path. But then with Kafka, and this is where it starts to get a little tricky now. And this also intertwines with what Assant Primad says about the four paths. So it goes hand in hand. So, anyways, so with Kafka, when she's talking to the Trailblazer, she talked about the four paths, that it's destruction, nihility, and harmony. And then she says the fourth one we have not met or has not revealed itself as the path yet. So keep that in mind. That's what she says. So fast forward, you do the last Planet Arcadia quest, and then Asap Prima reveals a couple of paths. If you get a fail, he says elation, which I believe that is true. I'll explain why I believe certain things is true. And then the rest is just lies. But it's funny because each thing that he says is a different path, and I believe that's also true. Again, I'm gonna explain why I think that, because it's gonna get a tiny bit complicated. So, again, if you get a fail, he says elation. And then with elation, he says that elation will be consumed, it will fall, and then aha will basically rebirth into something else. And then that something else will be a new path, and that will be the fourth uh, thing, like to finality. But it has to start with elation. That's why he says the fourth path is elation. That's what he says when you get a fail. If you get a success, he says preservation. I believe that's also true. And then with preservation, he comes out and he says that Quiloprof, which is the eon of preservation, hopefully I said that right, Quiloprof, whatever. He says that he would kill Veracity and then seal it in amber. Aha would still fall, and Quiloprof would end up start killing and ambering other eons also. And then the IPC would just preserve the whole universe. And it will basically kind of be almost like a standstill, if you will. So, something not exactly like the Trailblazer and Cyrene freezing everything, but something kinda like that. Because, if you will, preservation would kind of just amplify the universe. So he says that when you get a success. When you get a critical success, he says Trailblazer or Trailblaze. I also believe that's true. And then he says that Machiavelli reached the end of the world, did something else, and then basically kind of almost the same thing that he says when he says elation, that Trailblaze will fall and something will be birthed out of that, and then it will reach finality. So here's why I think all of those are correct, and why remembrance is also one of the possibilities of the fourth path. Even though it shouldn't be, but yeah, like I said, it's a bit complicated. So when Kafka was talking to the Trailblazer and said we haven't met the path yet, or the path hasn't revealed itself yet, that right there, her saying reveal the path itself, that's the answer right there. So it's not necessarily just exclude destruction, annihilation, and harmony, because those are three confirmed. Even though something could be birthed out of that, which I'll get to that after. But all of the other ones, like propagation, preservation, beauty, order, uh, elation, trailblaze, finality, even finality itself. But I was thinking of another one: abundance, land, or the hunt. So I believe all those paths could be the fourth finality, but it has to happen in a very specific way. So again, with remembrance, it did temporarily become the fourth path because the Trailblazer and Cyrene froze everything. So remembrance is a possibility. And then uh, the three that Asaprimon said. And then I was also thinking about Sunday. So it's weird and it doesn't make any sense until again what Asaprimon said and what Kafka said way back then. But it it doesn't make sense that when Sunday was gonna rise to Eonhood, he was gonna be called Domination slash Conquest. I'll explain why. Because inside Emphorius, we know that I was about to call them Titans. I was thinking of Greek mythology. But the demigods who held the core flames, they themselves each represent certain paths. And I also believe it was the paths during the time Xandar was alive. That's why we don't have propagation inside of it. We don't have abundance inside of it. We don't have Trailblaze originally. Originally. Well, no, it's destruction. It's originally destruction. And I know that sounds very dumb and complicated because using destruction, he created Finon, but Finon was originally the deliverer, and the deliverer represented the Trailblaze. And it's only until Finon stopped being deliverer, passed it into the Trailblazer, that he truly became destruction. So that's a whole different thing, bro. I'm saying all this stuff and I'm going into other stuff and it's making me sidetrack. But anyways, so to my back to my original point about even talking about Emphorius. Ceridra. Ceridra represented order, but when you play throughout the story and you meet her and uh, you see how she is and how she interacts with other people and how she talks, she's always talking about conquering everything. Like conquering, like leaving Euphorius, conquering the stars, having one big army, Hycelin's like her as her general, conquering all stars and planets, and basically conquering, dominating everything in the universe. But she's order. And then with Sunday, when Sunday was also on the order path, and then almost reaching Eonhood, he was going to be conquest and domination. So even him also is like overthrowing order, but is birthed from order. You see like what I'm trying to get at? So again, now back to what Kafka said, that the path hasn't revealed itself yet. And then with Fasad Primad saying three different answers, then I believe the fourth path is every single path, but certain things has to happen. So maybe who knows? Because they haven't said this in the game. So this is not confirmed. This is just me theorizing. Everything I'm saying is a theory. But You know what I mean. But uh but I wonder like if Sunday actually becoming domination and conquest, would that also would have been one of the fourth paths to finality? It just makes you wonder. And then again, with remembrance, like I said, temporarily that did happen because they froze the universe. So that could have been a fourth path. So it's just like all this stuff, like it just makes it seem like the reason why the fourth one is undetermined and no one knows is because it could be every single path, but certain things has to happen. So I don't know. For like beauty, like if beauty was to be the fourth one, like beauty has to, Adrella has to ascend again or like reappear because I'm pretty sure she's probably dead, like actually dead, not just hiding somewhere.